All right, the last one that we did was 14. Just talking about the steepness. Did we finish that one? We did? Okay, so moving on. What did y'all get for 15? I know it's a word problem. I know you guys hate to read, but it's actually a pretty easy one. And yes, it is correct. It is C. Now, even though it's a long problem, please don't be lazy and actually try to read. You didn't even have to read the whole paragraph to find the answer for this one. If you look at 15, if you look at the actual problem, the very first sentence, it says a correlation exists between the speed at which an automobile is driven and then the amount of gasoline used by the automobile. So think to yourself, does one directly affect the other? Yes or no? Yes, they directly affect. If you're going to drive faster, that means you're pressing the gas pedal a lot harder. You're using more gas. So yes, they directly affect one another. Now for A, B, C, and D, all you had to do was read the first part of each answer choice. For A, it says there is an association, but no causation, meaning that there is a relationship. Remember, we said association is a relationship. Easier. There's a relationship between the two variables. Causation, does it directly affect one another? Does it directly affect the other? It's saying there's a relationship, but it does not directly affect. And we just said it does. So it couldn't be A. B, there is a causation, but not an association. It does directly affect, but they're not related. This could never be a possible answer choice because you can't have something that does affect another thing and then not be related. They're gonna be related. Crap. Can't be B. C, there is an association and causation. They are related and they do affect one another. D, there is neither an association nor causation, meaning they're not related, they don't affect one another. It's not D, it's C, okay? Look at all that time I saved by not having to read the rest of it. Find your variables. Do they directly affect another or are they only related, okay? Next one, 16. On your packet, all you had to do was find the what? What is the rate of change? Rate of change for the millionth time is what? Another word for slope. Now you got lucky. You have an equation that is already solved. So what is the slope of that line? Wake up. What's the slope? -5/8. -5/8. Now we have, you have an equation. To find which one goes with it, you have an equation where it's solved for y. Where can you put anything that is solved for y? And you can use a calculator. Where can you put something that is solved for y? No, you don't put it in math. Look at what the first two variables and symbols are. What does it say in your equation? Read this. Y equals. Y equals. Where do you see y equals on your calculator? Top left, y equals, meaning you can put your equation there. Put it exactly the way you see it, 4 minus. Now, please don't use alpha y equals for this fraction, just because in your table, everything is a decimal. If you use alpha y equal, it will give it to you in fraction form. So, but the reason I do use alpha y equals is because a lot of you still don't know that when you have 5/8, it's 5 divided by 8 in that order and not 8 divided by 5. Top number goes first, divided by 8. 5 divided by 8. And then where do I go to find all of these values? Where do I go to find my table? second graph, second graph. Awesome. So now in F, the very first table starts at -3. So if I start at the -3 here, or if I go to find my -3, according to that equation, I'm supposed to get 5.8. So does F match my table? No. Let's go to G. G is telling us to look for the -4 first. So I'm going to go up to find that -4. And it gives me a 6.5. So does G match? Also does not match. Look at H. The -4, 6.5 matches. The next number, it's obviously not going to always give it to you in order from -4, -3, -2, -1. But the next number we jump to is a +2, 2.75. +2, 2.75. Does that match? Let's check the number 4. We're not going to get confident because sometimes I get it. You're already complaining. You're bored because you don't want to check every single one of them. There has been a STAR test where 3 out of 4 of them matched and the last one didn't. So guess who missed it? A lot of people. So 4, 1.5, that matches. 8, -1, 8, -1. So far, my answer is H. Let's look at this 5. 5, a +5 gives me 0.875. It doesn't match. So yes, I know for a fact it's H because I checked every single one and I wasn't lazy and decided to only check one out of each table. Make sure you do all of that. Now copy this table into your packet. "17, you were given the graph. I verbally told you where to shade. Notice a lot of you didn't shade either way, even after I told you to do so. Now, the very first thing I would check is the inequality because I noticed that my line is what? Is it solid or is it dotted? It's a solid line. So I can go ahead, even if I don't know how to solve equations or even if I don't know how to create an equation, I know that I could eliminate what 2 answers? A and C. Now, I did verbally tell you because I saw that the shading didn't show up on your packet to shade which side? Below. So if it's shaded below, should it be less or greater? Less. So less than equal to. Less shaded below, underline, solid line. So my answer is what? D. But we're going to hypothetically say that B is less than equal to, and it's a 1/3, even though I know my answer is D. You need to know also how to create an equation. What 2 things do you need to create any equation in slope-intercept form? You don't need to know all of mx plus b. What do you need to know? The slope, which is m. What else? Which is, out of those 2, which one's the easiest to find? You need to know this. You need to know this. Yes, the easiest thing to find is B, is your y-intercept, which it crosses at the +2. So I'm going to write my +2. Now, how do I find the slope on a graph? It's a positive slope. That's one of the things I can point out. What else? How do you find the slope? What do you use? Rise over run, meaning I'm going to go which direction first? Up 3, add 3 over 1. Now, if my slope is a +3 over 1, +3 over 1 is the same as having a 3. There's your 3x plus 2. Need to know how to create the equation. Everybody got this? 18. I asked you to find the solution. Asked you to find the solution on this one. Now, I think I did write a hint on this one. What was the hint? Did I or did I not? No hints? All right, how do you find the solution for this one? Because there is some that have hints on how to solve this one. What do we do? I would solve for y because you were required to graph it. We solve for y, okay? So draw your line. Not going to go over the steps on how to solve for y because that is something that you should already know by this point. The only thing you had to do on that top equation, if you convert it to standard form, don't erase it. Just copy the work down on in another spot. So solve for y, -1/2 x, and 4 divided by -2, -2. Move the x, so +3x. Solve for y, 2y, 3x plus 12, then divide by 2. And so you get y equals 3/2, +3/2x plus 6. Okay. Now, how do I find the point of intersection with those? Let's say we didn't have a graph to look at. How would I find the point of intersection? You can put both of these equations or solve for y so you can go to y equals. Go to y equals and type in your equations. So I'm going to type in, since we don't need the table, it's okay to use alpha y equals. When you need the table, I would just type it in as divided. -2. And then alpha y equals, enter 3/2 x plus 6. You're not attempting this, you're not going to have practice. So after that, what do I press? Second trace. The solution is also known as the point of what? Intersection. So 5, wait for both graphs to pop up. Whenever that first question pops up, what do we press? Enter, enter, enter. And there's your point of intersection. You're trying to find where they intersect, where they cross. So the point of intersection is what? -4, 0. Look at F. F is crossing at a +4, 0. H is crossing at a +4, 0. And both G and J are crossing at a -4, 0. What if I were to label my y-intercepts? What if I were to put points here and here? Bless you. Would that be considered my solution? Would this be considered my solution? The 6 and the -2, is that my solution? No, our solution is where they what? Where they intersect, where they cross. Now, G and J are both crossing at -4, 0. But if you look at your equations, you'll see that you have a +6 y-intercept and a -2 y-intercept. +6, +2, not G. +6, -2. Your answer is J. Your answer is J. You're not always going to have graphs provided. You need to know how to do this with or without a graph. Ready? All right, 19. I did write a hint on this one. How do you solve this? By doing what? Creating a proportion. Now, what's a keyword that you could see that lets you know that you have to make a proportion? It's in there as well. What's beside the word proportion? Varies directly. Make sure you underline it. If you see the words varies directly. Now, in 19, in the actual word problem without the hints, you don't see the word varies directly, but you know that you have to create a proportion because you're given 3 values, but you have to find that last one. How do you set up a proportion? Wake up. How do you set up a proportion? How do you set up a proportion? You're only making this video longer. How do you set up a proportion? What are my two variables? That's not a variable. That's not a variable. Toad, bullfrog. Toad and bullfrog. Proportion, set a fraction equal to each other. Set a fraction equal to each other. We only did this through bell ringers. We only did this for one day. It was a one-day lesson. So look at that first sentence. The first sentence, they give you one number. That number belongs to what? Toad or bullfrog? Toad is 25. Where does that 25 go? Bullfrog, we don't know. So I'm going to put that variable. That's my unknown. Look at that second sentence. That one belongs to what? Toad or bullfrog? So that goes where? Top or bottom? Second number belongs to bullfrog. Goes top or bottom? How do you solve a proportion? Well, now I remember cross multiply. And what do you do with that last number? Divide. So 25 divided times 3 is what? And 75 divided by 1. So my answer is A. Some of the problems will say varies directly on them. Some of them won't. You need to know how to recognize it. They give you 3 values. Find the last one. Number 20. In your packet, all you were asked to do is find the rate of change, which is slope. Okay. Now, in order to find the slope of that equation, what did you have to do? All right. Once you solve for y, what did you get? Thank you. -1/2 x plus 3. Nobody did their homework over the weekend. Nobody. So look at f, or what is the slope of this equation after you're done solving? There's my slope. So look at f. What is the slope? -1/2. So f is a possibility. How do you find the slope on a graph? Down what? Down to the right. How many do I go down? How many to the right? So my slope is G is also a possibility. Look at H. How do you find the slope from a table? Change in Y, change in X, slope. Rise over run, change in Y, change in X. How much does it decrease? How much does it increase? So how do you get from a -0.5 to a -3? -2.5. Thank you. How do you get from a -3 to a -5.5? -2.5. Thank you. -2.5 every time. -2.5. So this -2.5, is it going to go on the top or the bottom of my fraction? Y goes on top. So next one, your number is increasing or decreasing. So we're adding 5 every single time. Thank you for that. Adding 5. So what is -2.5 divided by a +5? Take a wild guess. -1/2. All 3 of these have a -1/2 slope. So they all have the same slope as that equation, all the above. What else can you do in the calculator to find the slope if you don't know how to do that? Which most of you do not remember how to do that. How to find the rate of change of a table. What can you do? How do you find the slope on a table? Stat edit, awesome. So glad you guys are on it today. So sad. So sad, so prepared, so awesome today. I'm already considering just letting you guys figure the rest of this out by yourself. Wasting my time. Put your points in, go to stack, calculate, number 4, go down to store. Add store, alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. It gives you a slope, but it gives it to you in decimal form. It tells you that the slope is negative 0.5. How do you convert it back to a fraction? Math, enter, enter. And then if you type math, enter, enter, it'll give you your negative 1/2 back. Once again, same slope. Moving on. Ridiculous. All right, an equation is shown below. Now it does tell you to, it does give you a hint. What does it tell you to do? Solve for X, but you need to know how to recognize why you're solving for X in the first place. Look at that equation. How many different letters do you see? How many different variables do you see? Different variables, different letters. There's only one letter throughout that whole equation. Look at your answers. X equals, X equals, X equals, X equals. You're solving for X. So even though I wrote that hint down, you didn't even have to, I didn't have to tell you. You just got to recognize that. You're not going to have this test with hints on it. All right. Now, this is that one lesson where I told you if you have parentheses, the first step is to multiply. But we don't have parentheses, so we could skip over that part. But we do have what on the left side? Same variable. So what are we going to do? We're going to combine. 3 minus 10x is negative 7x. After that, you have two terms on each side, so I'm good to start moving things from one side of the equation to another. Minus 5x, thank you. I actually heard it. So negative 7 minus 5x gives us, bring everything else down, bring down that 17. Now what? Minus 5. That's a positive 12. Now last step. And you get x is equal to negative 1. Okay, 22. Which one's the function? You actually had the graphs on yours. Which one is it? What was the answer? How do you know? What do you have to do? Vertical line test. Vertical line test says if it crosses more than how many? More than once, more than once. If it crosses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, it is not a function. F, how many times does it cross? H, twice, 2 times. Look at G, it only crosses once here. On the x-axis? Oh, you're talking about this one or this one? Oh, if you draw a vertical line here, it'll cross twice. Yeah, but technically, if you look at this, look at the ends of this line. It's an arrow. What does an arrow tell you? That it keeps going. So 2 times, keeps going, 3 times. If a line's one on top of the other, how many times is it going to cross? Infinity. It's going to cross an infinite number of times. All 3 of these cross more than once. Now, if you do come across one that says that does not represent, it's going to say not somewhere in there, does not represent y as a function of x, there's going to be 3 graphs where they only cross once and 1 where it crosses a bunch of times, 2 or more. But remember, with functions, we're only paying attention to the x value. just in case you get a group of ordered pairs. The X value cannot repeat. You're looking to see if the X value repeats or not. You're always looking to see if the X value repeats or not with functions. Don't pay attention to the rest of this. Y is a function of X, just a gibberish. Functions. X value cannot repeat. If you're given a table, look at the X values. If you're given a set of ordered pairs, look at the X values. Next one, I'm gonna cross out. Did anybody actually solve this one? What's the answer? What? Did you say D? What'd you get? You got 4 over what? Ale, what'd you get? Nope. Okay. All right, so those of you that actually did solve it, just move over to a different space and solve it again. We have parentheses. What does the parentheses tell us to do? Oh, forgot to change the size of that. Multiply. So we're going to take that number in the front, multiply by both on the inside. 3 times x is 3x, 3 times -6, -18. You don't use the 8x, so you just bring that down. And the other set of parentheses has a -3 in front. Okay, so just be looking for your mistake. -3 times 3x is -9x. -3 times 7 is -21. Now, before you start moving things from one side to the other, you have to do what? Combine your like terms. Now, there's no like terms here on the left side, so I'm going to bring down that 3x minus 18. 8 minus 9x gives us what? And bring down that -21. After that, we're down to 2 terms on each side, so I'm safe to go ahead and move stuff from one side to the other. So I'm going to add the 1x. 3 plus 1x is 4x. And then bring down the -21. Now you're going to, after that, you want to move the numbers away from x because you want the x to end up by itself. So you're going to add 18. Now -21 plus 18 gives you -3. And the last step is to divide by 4. So you get x is equal to -3 over 4, which was C in the answer choices. -3 over 4. But what if this was a griddable? And that is possible. You cannot bubble in a -3/4. So how do you switch it to a decimal so you can graph, so you can bubble it in? Math what? Math, you have to change it to decimal or the second line, second option, then press enter, enter. It's math decimal, enter, enter. And it gives you what? -0.75. Now, some of you know that 3/4 is already 0.75, so good for you. Math decimal, enter, enter. All right, so for those of you that actually need to see it being changed to a decimal, I can type it in alpha y equals, put my -3 over 4. And then you're going to hit math, which is right under alpha. Decimal is a second option, so 2, enter, and there it is, -0.75. Math, decimal, enter. All right, next. There is one answer choice that you can eliminate right off the bat, even if you don't know how to solve equations or inequalities. Which one would it be? Just F. Just F. Why F though? It's not underlined, so it should be a dotted line. Hold on. What? All 3 of those are dotted. Now, I cannot eliminate anything else until I do what? You can't graph it yet. What's wrong with my inequality? What do I need to do? I have to solve, and I need to know certain rules when I'm solving inequalities. because the only step that I need to take is to divide by a -4. What is that very important rule that I need to remember? Flip the sign when you're dividing by a negative. And -12 divided by -4, believe it or not, is a +3. A lot of people will mess up on that, but thankfully all of these are crossing at a +3. I still cannot eliminate anything. The name of this inequality is now what? It's greater. So if it's greater, it's going to be shaded which way? Above. Now, if I look at G is shaded below, J is shaded above, H is technically shaded above, okay? So from there, what other part do I need to know that we've repeated 1,000,001 times? Hoi, hoi, there is a Y in hoi. H stands for a horizontal line. Your answer is J. There is a Y, but an X is missing. 25. You needed to find the equation from this table. Now, according to the table, do you see the y-intercept? No, you do not see the y-intercept. So what am I going to have to use to find the equation? It is a table. What can I use? Stat, edit. Now, I already have numbers in here, so how do I get rid of those? Up, clear, enter. Never press delete, because if you press delete, Ms. Ramirez is going to have to fix it for you. 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 31, 31, 50, 32. Once you're done typing those points in, calculate number 4. Now, you also need to know that you're picking option 4 by the end of the year. By the time we get around to May, you're going to have 3 different options that you're going to know how to use. It's going to be 4, 5, and 0 once we get to that. 0 is the very last one that we learned. Another reason that you know you're going to use 4 is because your equations are in slope-intercept form. Y is equal to mx plus b. It is a straight line. It's a linear equation. But in this case, my y is c. My y and c are the same thing, but my slope, or my x, my variable x, is the same as m. So you just got to be a little bit careful on that. All right, so I am picking option 4. Go down to store, press your alpha trace, enter, 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 and you're given this equation. How do you put it together? A is your slope, so 0.1 what? X plus what? And that matches with which one? A. 0.1 is your slope. There's my slope. 30 is my y-intercept. Match it up. Or you could do it the long way. All of these are actually technically solved for y. So you could put it in y equals and find the table, match those. But once again, that is the longer way. That's just another option. So if I go and I put c into y equals, let me clear this out just for purposes of the video, 0.1 x plus 30. I go to what, 5, 10, 15? Crap, second table. 5, 30.5, 10, 9, 10, 31, 15, 31.5. You see it? So you can work backwards. All right, 26 is the last one. This is probably the last one we're gonna have time to get through. So here we go. This could either be a 3-part question or it can be a 6-part question, depending on how you decide to solve it. So, but the first 2 parts are going to be the same no matter what. First thing you notice is that it has the keyword parallel. What do we remember about parallel lines? Now, which means that I would be required to know the slope of this equation. Can you tell me the slope of that equation? No, because you have to solve it. So let's solve it. Minus 5x. Negative 4y minus 5x plus 10. Last step, divide by negative 4. Don't forget you're dividing two negatives there on the slope. So negative 5 divided by negative 4 gives you a positive 5 over 4x. 10 divided by negative 4 will simplify to negative 5 over 2. Okay, we don't need both fractions. We only need one of them. Which one do we need? 5 over 4. So the slope, I'm going to write that in here, is 5 over 4. We said parallel lines have the same slope. So do I need to change that 5 over 4? No. We will, I think in the packet, we do have one for perpendicular, so I'm not going to cover that. But we have the slope, we have a point. What can we use? Point slope. So when I plug it into point slope form, I get y minus negative 7, 5 over 4 times x minus 12. That double negative changes to what? Changes to a positive. So I'm going to connect those. And then my first step is to multiply. So 5 over 4 times x, remember in point slope form, slope never changes, so it stays the same. 5 over 4 times negative 12, you're welcome, negative 15. Oh, somebody actually solved it, okay. And then the last step, minus 7. Slope never changes, so you put it under the y-intercept, not the slope. Okay, 5 over 4x, and then that gives us negative 22. Now, look at your answer choices. Do any of those match? No, because my answer choices are in. What is that? Nope, it's not slope. This is slope intercept. We have never once mentioned the word Pythagorean theorem in Algebra 1. Malia, what was it? Standard form, thank you. So yes, we have to take that extra step. Now, if you don't know how to convert to standard form, yes, take each one of these answers and solve for y, and it'll match up with one of them. But easiest thing to do is just go back to standard form. That's my third step. These were the additional 4 steps that I did not want to take. So for standard form, x and y have to be on the same side. Everybody see that here? X and y on the same side. So I'm going to move my 5 over 4 back over to the left side, minus 5 over 4x. Okay. Now, x always comes first, so I'm going to bring that negative 5 over 4x plus 1y equals negative 22. Now, since my slope is a fraction, what do I also have to do? And also by a what? Correct. By the bottom number of the fraction, if any part of the fraction is a negative, you gotta also multiply by that negative. Now you distribute, meaning you multiply by both. So negative 4 times negative 5 over 4 is going to give you positive 5x. Negative 4 times a positive 1, negative 4y. And negative 22 times a negative 4 gives you a positive 88. And there's your answer, F.